Very good evening, viewers. You're watching today's edition of the Urban Debate. I'm Afrida Rahman Ali. This episode, we want to talk about how police's attempt to broker peace between disputing parties has proven to be deadly. Not in one, but in two cases recently. Two big cities, two brutal instances of heinous crimes. Very recently, we saw 48-year-old Kanhaiya Lal brutally murdered in Udaipur inside his own shop. On the other hand, a class 12 standard student was stabbed by her stalker earlier today in broad daylight in Delhi. The girl was attacked right outside her school. What we want to do is we want to highlight what's common between these two cases. The fact that both these people had approached police stating a threat to life. What did the police do? Instead of taking action and providing safety to the complainant, the police put both the parties face to face, tried to broker peace, tried to strike a compromise. And how did that turn out? Of course, with deadly consequences. In one case, fatal consequences. Kanhaiya Lal is dead. The girl is critical in the hospital. And I want to call them victims of police compromise. Yes, that's what we are calling them on Mirror now. Let's look at case number one. Kanhaiya's neighbors didn't like certain remarks that he made on social media, so they approached the police to complain. The police filed an FIR and arrested Kanhaiya. They then called both the parties to the police station to talk it out, to sort out their differences. While it seemed like the issue was put to rest, it only took a few days later that Kanhaiya started getting death threats on WhatsApp. Scared for his life, he approached the police to complain. However, family claims the police this time did not even entertain his pleas. And soon, as we all know, he was murdered inside his shop. And quite a similar story now again that happens in the national capital, where a 12th standard student was followed, stalked and harassed by someone known to her, a neighbor in fact. The two lived close by. The girl's family goes to the police, who then bring in the stalker. The same formula being applied, where the two parties made to confront each other to sort out differences. Is that the police's job in any case? Now, here's where this story again takes a dramatic turn. In his statement to the police, the accused says he will continue to follow her. Despite this brazen statement, the police does nothing. Instead, tries to broker peace again. And it seems the accused even committed that he will refrain from doing any harm to her. Oral commitments being taken by the police, should they be operating that way. On the way to school early this morning, the same girl was stabbed. So instances of police inaction has led to deadly consequences. The big question we want to ask tonight: why should police outsource their responsibility of law enforcement? Why should police press for a settlement? Is it their job to broker peace and to strike a compromise, or is it their job to take timely action to prevent these heinous crimes? And now that lives are lost, who will take responsibility? Let me welcome, joining us here on the program, Dilip Trivedi, former Director-General CRPF, also Shamina Shafiq, former member of the NCW, Rami Desai, author, Shashikant, former DGP Law Order from Punjab. In fact, I would like to take opening comments, starting with you, Mr. Trivedi. The question that we are asking is very simple. This is not the brief for the police, is it? Are you supposed to be calling both parties, be the arbiter, or are you supposed to act on a complaint? Because from my limited understanding, a threat to life is a cognizable offense.
Yes, you see, definitely it's not the job of the police to broker peace between two parties. And why these kind of things happen, it's not that this is the first time it's happening. It's been highlighted in social media these days. But I remember joining the police force 40 years ago, and we would still have cases like this. So there is a certain amount of insensitivity to the issues at the grassroots level in the police. One has to admit that. And but that is not something very unique only to police. It's in government. If you see, it's in the entire government structure. Any government servant becomes insensitive once he gets a government job. He becomes insensitive to the general public. be it a sarkari doctor or be it a sarkari engineer, but you name it, any one of them. So that insensitivity remains and that problem is there. But here the problem is further confounded by the fact that our legal system, legal system also is so archaic and old that there is nothing very much that the police can do in matters where until the crime is committed. At the most, they can tie them down for good behavior. They can sort of even make some preventive arrest. But we have seen even in cases where people are arrested for a murder or something and they go to jail and they come out on bail and yet they commit another murder. So basically, it's not only a failure of the police. I think it's a failure of the entire legal police, the law enforcement system of the country. And so one has at some point of time, something would needed to be done about this, because you cannot just hold either the police or the judiciary or XYZ individually responsible. It has to be a
But isn't it the police's job also to take preemptive action to prevent crimes? Are they only supposed to act after the crime is committed, or if they have some initial information, is it the police's job also to prevent crimes? Mr. Shashikant, yes, please complete, Mr. Trivedi.
It definitely is, and I said it in the beginning that some preventive action is available in the law, but that is not a very comprehensive law on that. Like I said, you can tie down a person for good behavior, you can make a preventive arrest which will be for a short period of time. All these issues are there, available, definitely available, but the point is that as I feel that they are not enough. That's what I'm trying to say.
But here a person has died. I mean, in the Udaipur case, Mr. Shashikant, the man is dead. I mean, if there was some timely action, there were quite a few threats which came to the notice of the police. Would you agree that certain crimes like this are not preventable even by the police? Who will a common citizen go to?
Certainly this kind of crimes where the matter has been reported to the police well in time and when there is evidence, yes, that the threat is genuine and the person is really being harassed and is being intimidated. Yes, police has to take timely action, notwithstanding the fact, like Mr. Trivedi said, the entire criminal justice system in our country is in shambles, no doubt about it. But yes, in matters, the first work of the police is to register a case. But in the instance like this case of the poor girl who was stabbed, I have seen this kind of thing, then the pressure comes up on the police and the family of the girls or the ladies that please don't register a case, go about a compromise, which is again wrong. Police has no power there too. And they say that, well, if the case is registered, then the girl will have to go out and also there will be sort of the word that they use, a social badnami kind of thing. In fact, yes, the entire system has become more or less rotten. Lots of things need to be done. Lots of recommendations have been made. But again, the agencies that are governments and the powers that be, they're prepared to implement those recommendations. Not even one of them, generally speaking.
Okay, but largely, Shamina Shafiq, if you can come into the conversation, largely the issue about women's safety. Women remain vulnerable, and the incident that happened today has happened in the national capital in broad daylight. A 12th standard girl first stalked, received threats, and then sure enough, I mean, whatever, in a fit of rage or whatever it is, the girl was stabbed. She's fighting for her life. She's undergoing treatment. And this is a very familiar pattern, Are we saying that, our systems are not capable of preventing these crimes, not capable of providing security to women? Shamina, if I may request you to unmute yourself. Okay, go ahead.
All right. No, you're absolutely right. You know what? Episode after episode, incidents after incidents, the same story repeats. Nothing changes. Only probably the city changes, the girl or the woman changes, but they eventually at the receiving end is the woman or the girl. In this particular case also, you're talking about police inaction. You know what? It's complete police apathy. Complete police apathy. And unfortunately, I mean, such incidences happen. We discuss on media. Sometimes the channels discuss as your channel. Otherwise, mostly these cases are brushed off under the carpet because people feel that, oh, this is just one another case. They don't realize that it's actually a girl who's so vulnerable otherwise also. And one girl at the receiving end, trust me, there are 100 girls who are stopped even to go to school or to receive education for such reasons because parents quote this. And police seems to be so unsympathetic to all such situations, as if, I mean, this is routine. So this is something which is scary. And I hate to say this, but all the systems which are in place in India to prevent crime against women, they seem to act only after incidents happens. I mean, in this particular case, if you see, I mean, there was a complaint, but why at all the police actually sits down and tries to say that, okay, come on, I mean, you should come to some terms and let this FIR...
Yes, is it because, Mr. Dilip Trivedi, is it because registering an FIR means a lot of work, means you need to follow it up, means things are on record and the police would be accountable? That's the tougher way. Is it because of that? Because clearly, again, from my understanding, whether it's stalking or voyeurism or eve teasing, these are all cognizable offences, isn't it, under IPC? Shouldn't the person be booked? You know, and there seems to be no deterrent because this is happening with an alarming regularity. Mr. Trivedi, you've served as the Director-General of Police and CRPF. From your understanding of law, why couldn't the police register an FIR, book the person who has issued threats based on the complaint?
You see, definitely an FIR can be registered. There's no doubt about it. But the problem is that what is the punishment in that case? What happens after the registration of the FIR? The person goes to jail for a few days, comes out on bail, and starts doing this again. I'll tell you a personal example. My niece, who stays in Delhi, stays in Vasant Vihar. She was being stalked by a man and 4 times that man was picked up and taken to jail, and every time he would come out on bail and again start doing the same thing. So the point is that, as I'm saying, is just you can berate the police, you can flog the police, fine, there's no issue on that. And there should, and to begin with, I said that more sensitivity is required at the grassroots level. But the point which I'm trying to make is that it is just not only the police; it is the whole criminal justice system. If a crime like this is committed and the punishment for that and the legal system takes care of putting that man in for a long period, say for 4 years, 5 years or something, to jail without him being on bail, then maybe it will act as a deterrent. But a person goes to jail and within 24 hours out, he's again on bail and again he's doing the same thing. So
no, I don't understand. Can that be an excuse not to take immediate action on a complaint? Rami Desai, author, is also with us. Yes, we'll have some citizen voices and prominent citizens' voices as well, because we need to understand from the perspective of people like, you and me. When we look at these instances, we think, why is the taxpayer even paying for the police department if they are not able to give us some very basic safety in the capital city of this country? Rami Desai, your thoughts?
I am just not justifying. I am not justifying the police inaction.
I understand. I just want to bring in the panelists as well. Ms. Desai?
Good evening, Afrida. I think, it's great that you've picked up this topic because it needs far more deep diving than we've been doing lately, But let me say at the outset that any life that is lost because of general apathy to the threat perception towards that person or through sheer callousness of the authorities is really just a travesty of justice. Whether it is Kamlesh Tiwari or whether it is this young vulnerable girl today, the story is the same. Now, not wanting to politicize the safety and security of women, I have to accept that the state governments are responsible for law and order situations in the state. And when these tragedies become not the exception, but the norm, then one has to hold them accountable as well. Because more often than not, it is the priorities of local governments that are reflected in the law and order situations in the state that we ever so often see occurring. But however, let me break this down, and please do allow me 50 seconds for this.
Sure.
There are 2 parts to this story. The first part is, of course, the law and order situation per se, where warnings are given and they are ignored and there's a lack of seriousness towards the issue at hand. The second part here is women's safety, which is quite different from a general law and order situation because, it has more nuances than other situations. In the former, the driving forces can be maybe vote bank politics or some sort of political inclination, that limits them. But when it comes to women's safety, I agree with, some of our other panelists who said, it's a lot more than asking the police forces, the system to take complete responsibility because, this also we have to figure in the sensitization towards women's safety, societal responsibility, general culture that we are putting out there, whether it's the pop culture, whether what we see in Bollywood, how they treat women, as well as the real-time issues that are faced by the police system in general. Now, of course, I'm not saying that we can completely blanket out, responsibility for them because they've taken an oath of responsibility and proper conduct. But having said that, we have to accept the reality on ground that and this is my number one point, that our police forces are completely overburdened. There is no sort of, there's a very limited strength that we have per lakh
issue is
people.
not, Rami Desai, here the issue is not the manpower. Here the issue is a mistaken sense of what the mandate is for the police. The police decided to be the arbiter. It should not have gone to that because that is not the mandate. I will have Mr. Shashikant explain to us, but finish your point, Rami Desai.
Absolutely, I agree with you. That's not the mandate. That's why I'm saying that you cannot remove all responsibility for them. But eventually, the practicality of the situation, the reality on ground, is people are trying to avert a certain amount of responsibility because they are overburdened. Now, to solve this system, or at least attempt to solve this situation, this is one of the problems that we have to solve. We have to have the kind of police force.
Okay, I get your point.
Require.
You're saying that maybe that, the reluctance to register an FIR could be because that the system does not have enough manpower to act on each of these cases. Things like this happen in close succession sometimes. Okay, on that point, let me have Mr. Shashikant explain to us the mandate point of it. Is the police supposed to bring in the disputed parties and have a conversation, sort out differences? Because this could be very misleading and it could set a very wrong precedence as well. Some of these things, when they happen, then it spreads all over and everyone else starts doing it. So this course correction is important, isn't it, Mr. Shashikant?
Yeah, of course. To start with, I'd like to thank Ms. Desai. She made certain very relevant points. I would have liked to record those points, but I didn't want to because it's just sort of it becomes sort of slightly more and more controversial. It's come from a lady who is seen and who knows the situation at is. Thank you, ma'am. And regarding you talking about the mandate, no way. Police has no mandate. You go in for what we call in our language, razinamas, etc., etc. Whatever information comes, the first information report, the FIR, has to be lodged. There are innumerable court instances where courts have also been saying it. Even the Supreme Court has been saying it, that it is the primary duty of the police to register the FIR and to investigate.
Yes.
And again, yes, like Mr. Trivedi was also saying, yes, criminal justice system, there's so many factors in fact. But again, to reply to your point precisely and succinctly, yes, police has no such mandate. They're supposed to register their FIR and go about investigation as per the law of the land.
Yes. In fact, before I go to Shamina again, let's listen in to the relatives of the girl who was stabbed. Now, this is what happens to families when something of this nature takes place, because they fail to understand that, who do we go to, whose doors do we knock? Because it's such a helpless situation. You had a person threatening your daughter. Who do you go to? You go to the police. After that, the police, like I said, call the accused, tries to explain to him, don't do this, trying to parent the guy, as it were, and that did not work. It has led to very, very, unfortunate consequences. Let's listen in to the mother of the 18-year-old girl, the teenager who was stabbed earlier in Delhi.
मेरी बेटी सुबह स्कूल जा रही थी, सुबह 7 बजे स्कूल जा रही थी, 7:30 इसकी बेटी को लेने जा रही थी तो वो लड़का मिल गया रास्ते में, पता नहीं कहाँ कहाँ मारा, यहाँ पूरी किडनी मेरी बेटी की चली गई।
परेशान करता था
नहीं, बीच में ठीक हो गया था, फिर करने लगा था।
हमारी नहीं निकलती थी।
तो दिल्ली पुलिस की तरफ से कोई कार्रवाई नहीं हुई थी?
कुछ भी नहीं, बस एक ही बारी रिपोर्ट लिखवाई, कहते नहीं जिस दिन रिपोर्ट लिखवाई उस दिन भी मेरी बेटी को कहता मिल गया, और अपने चाचा के साथ जा रही थी, मास्टर के साथ, कहता अब छोड़ूंगा नहीं तुझे। हम पुलिस वालों को फोन करा, पुलिस वाले कहते कुछ नहीं होगा, ऐसे ही बोल रहा है।
आपको लगता है कि अगर पुलिस वाले अगर कार्रवाई करते उस वक्त
बिल्कुल बच जाती है, उन्होंने कोई दिक्कत नहीं, तब भी अपनी बेटी को नहीं छोड़ती थी अकेले।
पुलिस ने कोई कार्रवाई नहीं करी, पुलिस ने कहा हम बैठे हैं, हमारा नंबर ले जाओ, कोई दिक्कत करे दोबारा हमें फोन करना। और जैसे ही हम बाहर निकले 1 महीने के बाद हमें कहता है इसको तो मैं मार दूंगा, जान से छोड़ूंगा नहीं।
तो अगर पुलिस कोई कार्रवाई करती तो ये
नहीं होता, बिल्कुल नहीं होता, सब बेपरवाही पुलिस वालों की है। किसी की जान नहीं जाएगी, पुलिस वाले कहेंगे हम इंक्वायरी कर रहे हैं, ऐसे इंक्वायरियां थोड़ी ना होती हैं।
Shamina Shafiq, what can the National Commission of Women do in such cases? Can it intervene? Can it ensure that in this kind of police inaction, if it has led to a young girl being stabbed in this manner, can the commission in any way come in and, take up these matters?
Yes, of course, the commission can take cognizance, they can call the police and they can actually ask what has happened. They can set up an inquiry committee, go on the ground, figure out whose fault it is, and then give the report and ensure that the person who's responsible for the entire apathy actually gets booked. But unfortunately, you know what, of late we are seeing that the commission is not actually acting the way it should have been, or at least the way I used to when I was in the commission, we used to act. Because the commission can actually take cognizance even from the newspaper reports, forget about, personal complaints. If at all the commission feels that there is a lacuna, there is a lack of safety or security to girls or women in a particular area or a particular college or whatsoever, a particular space, public space, it can take an action. But nothing much seems to be moving around. That is the most unfortunate part in this. And also I want to say there are two aspects to it. We need to understand very clearly. Number one, the police doesn't register an FIR on the first instance because there is a pressure on the police from the top level that there should be less numbers of registered FIRs, because more FIRs means the rate of crime is high. This is how it works. So there is a pressure, and that is why the police mostly acts the way it acts. It doesn't tend to register the FIR, because once the FIR is registered, then they are supposed to do the investigation, then they are supposed to give a closure report, which is a charge sheet, which is definitely much task. The second aspect to it is, please understand, we are talking about a girl stabbed in broad daylight in the Delhi, which is the capital of the nation. The chief minister is there, the home minister is there. It is their responsibility also, whether it is Delhi or for that matter UP or Rajasthan or Punjab or for that matter any state. The head of the state, the women and child development minister, all of them, it's their responsibility, it's the duty, it's not their moral responsibility. This is what they are there for, to safeguard the rights and the safety, ensure safety and security to girls and women.
Yes. But I still feel, Shamina ji, that they come later. The primary job is of law enforcement. That is why they exist.
I'm coming to that. What I'm trying to say is, once incident happens, if the head of the states comes out and gives a statement that I'm not going to take this nonsense in my state or in my city, what happens is that the entire system starts working. A similar thing happens when commission comes into the picture, because the moment the NCW or the State Women Commission gets up and talks about it and asks questions, takes inquiries, immediately the entire system springs into action and ensures that in future such doesn't happen, because they know they'll be called, they'll be questioned. It's going to be something which is not very good for the record of the police. So that is why it is equally important for the systems, the mechanism. This is what I was trying to talk in the beginning, that all the mechanisms which are in place, they have to actually work cumulatively. We cannot just say that, police hasn't done the work. If the police is not working, then there is the commission to ensure that the police works.
Which is what we are trying to do as journalists, because we ask these questions precisely for that, to get an understanding. There's so many cases of police complicity, even that we have reported. You know, the fact is that the case that happened in Udaipur, Shamina ji, that has created such a negative environment in this country. Look at how damaging it is. Look at how this could have been prevented with timely action. But because that did not happen, the kind of repercussions we are seeing after what happened in Udaipur, it has really, plunged this nation into this kind of a toxic discourse that is now on, leading to several other reactions to that incident. That is why we are questioning this. Shashikant ji, I want you to come in on the point that Shamina Shafiq made, that the reason why the FIRs are not registered is because there is pressure to keep the crime rate low. Is that how the police departments operate, try and suppress the reality in order to show records which look cleaner than it is?
Look, I'll be absolutely blunt as usual. What happens, this is the responsibility of the superintendent of police of the district to ensure that the crime remains under control. And again, unfortunately, it's a fact that in the services, as we go up the echelon, with each and every promotion, we lose this to whatever. So just to keep their image intact, saying that, yeah, the law and order in their districts is absolutely under control, and to show that in the crime meetings and the crime data, et cetera, that they are very efficient officers, efficient guys, and they have kept the entire thing under control. For this, again, we need to sort of go in for an amendment of the system, a change of system, that data doesn't matter. What really matters is the safety and security of the people. Thank you.
Absolutely, and which is why, the fact is that there will always be love stories going awry. Rami Desai, you and me know it happens all the time in our society. And we know, and that's why they're called young and restless. There are men who, on a fit of rage, can do such things. Imagine, this is my colleague who was telling me that it seems that the boy was called to the police station. He said he was defiant. He said, I'll continue to follow her. Here is a man who's obsessively in love, or whatever might have happened. The fact is, it was in the notice of the police. Now, again, I come back to the same point that, when you know that there are these elements, and of course, there are sexual perverts lurking, and you know that the city itself has got this kind of a record. Young women are vulnerable when they step out. And when such a thing comes to your notice, you try to take an undertaking. Even in that undertaking, the accused was brazen from the facts that have now come to me. So isn't this a sheer case of criminal neglect? Shouldn't police be pulled up, the police department and the relevant officers be pulled up for this?
Absolutely, Afrida. There are no two ways about it. Somebody has to take responsibility for this, and accountability is very important to sort of change the processes that we are seeing and where they are lacking. But having said that, I also think it's incredible that there is this sort of brazenness, and there isn't any fear of the law, so as to say. Common people like you or me, if we were ever summoned to the police station, God forbid, we would sort of have our antennas up, and we would really take cognizance of our actions, But having said that, where do they get this brazenness from? What is the kind of culture that we are giving these kids? Like, I wonder sometimes when I hear stories like this, what was his family doing? Did they not know that this boy, who is only of 22 years of age, should be concentrating on his career, is being summoned to the police station day in and day out? So there are multiple elements here that need to be held responsible. And of course, the accountability lies on the police forces as well, on individuals who decided that, maybe they could come to a compromise, maybe they could send him off with a warning, because at the end of the day, you cannot take a chance like this with anybody's life, and certainly not with a young girl's life. This is going to this sort of an incident is going to scar her for the rest of her life. I don't think these are situations that one can ever get past. And therefore, some sort of a sensitization program, some sort of indication from also the invested political parties that this really is priority. This will not be overlooked and there will be consequences to bear, is very important to put out there, and I don't think that is really reaching. Neither is it reaching, certain sections of, the system, nor is it reaching the general
We heard the
public
family
as well.
members, Rami Desai, there's a sense of helplessness. You know what the worst thing is? That the trust that is reposed, the faith that is reposed in the police is lost when things like this happen. Why would anyone even go to the police? The next time you would try to, and that this is how it happens. There are people who decide to take it upon themselves because they know the police wouldn't do anything. And that is the worst thing that can happen to our society, when we lose faith on the police entirely. Let's hope that that does not happen. I'm afraid I'll have to leave it at that. Mr. Dilip Trivedi, Shamina Shafiq, Rami Desai, and Mr. Shashikant, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.